So, the what? Yes. Okay, yeah, no, it's taken a little while for people to get in, so we're waiting a few minutes. What's that? Oh, good. That's good. That's signs of renewal.
We're happy to train, but nobody wants to take it. Maybe next year.
Shana Tova, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. I invite us to stand as the Sifrei Torah are brought in to the sanctuary before Kol Nidrei. And please join me in this nigun. We begin on page 204. Urzaru ala tzadik ulishre simcha. Urzaru ala tzadik ulishre simcha. של מתן על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים כל נדרי ושרי וחרמי וקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבו דין דרנה ודאישתבנה ודאחרינה איי ותיאסרנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא עלינו לטובה כל הון יחרטנה והון קום יהון שרם שביקים בתלין ובטלין לשרירים ולקיימים נדרנה לנדרי ושרנה לא אסרה ושבועתנה לשבועו כל נדרי ושרי וחרמי וקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבועות דין דרנה ודאישתבנה ודאחרינה איי 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 ותיאסרנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא עלינו לטובה כל הון יחרטנה Shvitin b'tedim muvutalim lasharirim v'lakayamin nidrana la nidrei v'sarana la esare ושבועתנה לשבועות כל נדרי ושרי וחרמי וקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבועות דינרנה ודאישתבנה ודאחרינה איי 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 ותיאסרנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא עלינו לטובה כל הון יכרתנה והון כל יהון שרן שביתין בטלים ובטלין לשרירים ולקיימים נדרנה לנדרי ושרנה להסרי ושבועתנה לשבועות ונסלח לכל עדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לכל העם בשגגה ונסלח לכל עדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לכל העם בשגגה ונסלח לכל עדת בני ישראל ולגר הגר בתוכם כי לכל העם בשגגה סלח נא לעולם הזה כגודל חסדך וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ידנה ושם נאמר ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. As the Sifrei Torah return to the Ark, I invite you to turn to page 206. And we'll take a few moments for the two Psalms to welcome in Shabbat. Mizmor Shir, Mizmor Shir, Leyom HaShabbat,
טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך לאמונתך בלילות. Please be seated. Hallelujah. 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 Magadu Masechaya Meodamku מחשבותיך. Hallelujah, מה גדלו מעשיך מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. Magadu Masechaya Meodamku Machshevotecha Magadu Masechaya Adonai Malach Geut Lavish. If you're just coming in to sit down, please feel free to take a moment and to meditate on these Psalms, to bring yourself into the space with community, and I'll bring us out with the Nigun. עדותיך נאמנו מאוד, וביתך נאווה קודש, אדוני לאורך ימים. יררי איי איי איי, יררי איי איי איי, יררי איי איי איי, יררי איי איי, יררי איי איי, יררי איי איי, יררי איי איי, Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom. And it's a great privilege to be with our BHA community in this precious space at this sacred time. And I can say, while I've experienced many Kol Nidreis, this is the first that brought us together, and particularly this way. And it was really so beautiful and really such a privilege to be a part of it. In my time here at BHA, I've heard from many people about what this last year has been and the resonances in your lives and the connections in your lives that have been so torn and tried in this year. And I've had so many conversations where it's become clear that what we're all seeking in this world, in this Jewish world at this moment, is some healing. And every Yom Kippur it's true, but particularly it's true this year for me, that I think of what the rabbis of the Talmud said so boldly, that tshuva, the turning that we do to each other, to God, to our people, to all people on this holiday, and the grand way we do it, and what we take from this day and do that tshuva with other people and in our souls and privately. Our rabbis say that it brings redemption to the world and that it brings healing to the world. And I believe that. And this year in particular, it struck me as very poignant and very personal that the first tshuva that we have in the Torah, and the first Yom Kippur that we have in the Torah, is introduced against the background of heartbreaking deaths and the silence that follows. And so if we're not familiar with the story, basically nothing happens in the book of Leviticus, except for one story. And in this story, Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu, at the moment when the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle in the wilderness that drew down God's presence, at the moment that the tabernacle and its altars were ready to be used and about to be sanctified, Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu took incense offerings of their own accord and brought it to the altar. And because they were offerings that weren't prescribed by God, they were consumed in a fire. And by the way, I have to say, what I'm saying is fine, it's the commentary that matters the most. But they were consumed in a fire, and Moses provides this haunting and enigmatic explanation for their deaths in the manner that I just did, that these were offerings that weren't prescribed by God, and so that's all that's allowed. And the Torah says, Vayidom Aharon, that Aaron was silent. And we don't know why he was silent. If that silence was just an awe-filled resignation, whether it was acceptance, or whether it was the silence of horror or confusion or argument, we don't know. And the Torah doesn't tell us. And so we're left with this silence. And in this heartbreaking year, of all the things that I wish I'd done differently, I find myself reckoning with my own silence. And yes, there were things I did, and there were stands I took, and there were causes I contributed to, and people who I showed up for. But for everything I've done, which I can't say is much or extraordinary in any way, there was so much more that I wish I had done. And I know that in at least one instance of my silence with a dear friend who's among the people who I admire most in this world, I know that my silence hurt him deeply. This is my friend Zev, who gave me permission to talk about him in this Devar Torah. And Zev was born and raised on a religious kibbutz in the south of Israel, just outside what's now known as Otef Aza, the Gaza envelope. He's a little bit older than I am. He grew up in a world that was very different from mine, not just chronologically, but in its history. He grew up in the Israel of the 60s and 70s and started in the army in the early 80s, which is a different, very different time. We've been friends for 33 years. He's married to the college roommate of Judy, my wife. But more than our friendship, and more than our casual friendship, he's always represented a lot to me. As I've gotten to know him, he's become a kind of standard bearer for many things I've strived my whole adult Jewish life to try and make my own. One is simply knowledge. What he knows and has internalized and just can recite without having to try because it's a part of him inspires me. He has this sense of belonging that I think comes from his having grown up in the children's house on kibbutz. This is something that doesn't exist anymore. But at the age of 6 weeks, instead of sleeping at home with his parents, he slept with other children and other babies in the children's house. And while I can't think of anything worse for a child, for him, it was the greatest thing of his life. He talks about it. He had all of these surrogate brothers and sisters, and so he grew up feeling that if you're in a Jewish community, it means you live with surrogate family. His parents were Holocaust survivors, as were many of his friends' parents around him. But in addition to that, his parents were also people of the world. His father was the great Talmid Chacham of the kibbutz. He was the main teacher. And every Saturday after Mincha on the kibbutz, Zev's father would sit him down and talk through Pirkei Avot with him, the ethics of our ancestors found at the back of our Siddur. His father made sure that Zev knew everything a learned Jew should know and internalize it. And his mother also, a deeply cultured person. And all of this imbibed in my friend the sense of not only knowing Jewish tradition and feeling it so deeply, but living in such a way as to be skeptical of the pretentious pieties that all of us are subject to. And he grew up being curious about Hebrew poetry equally as the world itself. And so he was angry at me after October 7th. And he was angry at me because I hadn't posted on Facebook my unequivocal support for what Israel was going through. And he called me out on it publicly. And I contacted him privately, and I tried to explain to him that for me, Facebook is never really personal. It's about publicizing what my community does and how I'm involved in leadership in my community. And since I'd moved to a new position where I was the dean of a rabbinical school, it wasn't for me to put out a position on Facebook. That was the job of my boss, the president of Hebrew College. Didn't matter, because when the president issued her statement, which is quite brilliant and quite thoughtful, I put it on Facebook, and Zev was still angry. It was too little, too late. And I felt something deeper that was even more troubling and disturbing, which was that Zev knows me. He knows me so well that when he calls me Rabbi, over-accenting the resh, I know he's teasing me, and it's also a sign of respect. He knows me so well that we can go into his Masorti Minyan in Jerusalem, where I've been going for, God knows, 25 years, and he can turn to me as we go and he said, Rabbi, I think you should lead us tonight, and you should give us the Devar Torah, which of course means in Hebrew. But if he knows me that well, he also knows where I stand. And he knows that for as long as I've known him, I've been talking about the great Israeli novelist and leader of the Israeli and Palestinian peace-building movement, David Grossman. And he knows that over the past 10 years, if not more, I've been making a concerted effort to be part of that movement in the way that I can. And he knows that while I deeply respect his military service and that of his family, that for me, that is just a foreign country. And so I was concerned that even though he never said anything, we never talked about it, that on a deeper level, my friend felt betrayed by me, as if I'd betrayed not only him, but his family and the state of Israel and the Jewish people. And because I felt that coming from him and I felt his anger, I felt a little bit of that myself. And perhaps some of you in this room also had a kind of interaction like that, or a rift like that with someone you love, whatever your own political analysis or whatever your own position is. So how do we recover from such a rift? I take great comfort in Moses Maimonides' Laws of Tshuva, and I make sure to study them every year. Frankly, I should probably study them once a month. But Moses Maimonides provides a script for us. And he takes the script from different parts of the Talmudic tradition and the commentaries that follow, and he boils them down to a few very simple steps. The first is to do what we're doing today. making a confession with words before God, specifying in public what it was that we did wrong, with regret in our heart and a pledge to not do the same thing again. And then we take that same open-heartedness and that same commitment and that same kavanah and take it to a person whom we've wronged. And we spell out what it is that we did wrong, why we did it, with regret in our heart and a pledge not to do it again. Maybe they forgive us after we've taken all these steps, and maybe we wait, and maybe we ask again 2 or 3 times. It's a beautiful script, it's poetic, but as we all know, such interpersonal repair rarely goes according to script. But nevertheless, Moses Maimonides insists on the specific tshuva with words, because from the time of the Torah and the temples until now, it's the only part of our tradition that's been consistent in the way in which we make tshuva, the way in which we make amends. So I knew what I had to do. I had to call, and I did. I told myself I was calling at the first possible opportunity in my busy life, but frankly, it was later than I should have. And so when I called Zev's wife, Lisa, whom I knew in college, she picked up the phone first. She told me about how her kids were doing, who was back in the army, who was waiting, how everyone was going in and out of bomb shelters, and how everyone was volunteering. Frankly, I welcomed the update because it delayed for me the inevitable. And then I started my tshuva. I just said, "I'm so sorry." And I started crying. And I don't remember what else I said. And then Lisa was incredibly generous, and she reassured me. And she said, "I never doubted you." But that wasn't the real tshuva I had to make. And then Zev got on the line. And he said, "Hello, Rabbi." All warmth and friendship and no anger. And again, I said, I can't just take it. And so I said, "I'm so sorry." And again, I couldn't get beyond crying, which was a little embarrassing. He's not exactly the crying type. And while I thought so carefully about what I would say in this conversation, I have no idea what came out. I just know he forgave me, and he gave me what I needed, and we went on without my even asking. And so at some point in talking about this, Judy asked me, "Well, what did you give Zev? Did you give him what he needed?" And honestly, I have no idea. I don't recall what I said. I don't think I said 1/10 of the things that I was supposed to say or meant to say. The tshuva did not go according to script. But I'm telling the story because it's precisely that part of the script that wasn't there that I want to reflect on. Because there is an aspect of tshuva, of this repair, that Maimonides talks about, and every year that I study it, it surprises me. We focus so much on what we need to do to make amends with someone we've offended, it's good, it's a good practice. But Maimonides reminds us that there's another aspect of it, that the whole goal of tshuva is to be the kinds of people who are so generous that when someone comes to us with an open heart to ask forgiveness, we are ready to give that forgiveness and embrace them again. And in the language of our tradition, Maimonides says we should be kasher lichos v'noach lirtzot, slow to anger and easy to appease. And he goes on to say, even if a person comes to you 100 times asking for forgiveness for the same wrongs, you should be kasher lichos v'noach lirtzot, slow to anger and easy to forgive. It's important to know, I think, because I think this adds to the grandeur of this phrase and this teaching that Maimonides gives us, that he didn't invent the phrase slow to anger and easy to forgive. It comes from Pirkei Avot, from the rabbinic writings in the 2nd, 3rd century. And the rabbis of Pirkei Avot say, this is the midah, this is the quality of a chassid, of a devoted person, of a saint. And I know that Zev knows this by memory because his father taught him. And I also know he would scoff at being called a saint or modeling that midah. But it's a part of a deeper kind of tshuva that Maimonides also has us think about in his laws. He says tshuva is not just about forgiveness, and it's not just about making an interpersonal repair. It's much deeper than that. It's about attending to our inner struggles in thought, and our struggles in feeling and working with those. And that the end result isn't just the old equilibrium, but it's rather that we can say about ourselves, ani acher, I'm different, I've changed. It was also suggested to me that to say ani acher means I am the other, meaning I am the other who is with you. I actually got to go to Jerusalem this past April, and I visited with my dear friends. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced, and it was like everything I've always experienced in Jerusalem. Everywhere there were posters of the hostages, in particular that of Hirsch Poland Goldberg, Zichrono Livracha, whose parents live in the same neighborhood as my friends. And we were talking among these friends and other friends, again, all the usual talk, who's in the reserves, who's out of the reserves, whose work is working, who's back in school, how long the semester is going to go because of the delayed start to the school year. And in the middle of all this, Zev and I talked about all the things we usually do: work, prayer, Hebrew poetry, literature, the NBA and the WNBA, kibbutz stories, the characters we've known for 30 years in Jerusalem and the States, and their foibles and their adventures and their misadventures. As always, he voiced his annoyance with the parts of the American Jewish community and the rabbinate as I listened and I nodded and didn't say anything. His daughter took me to an anti-Netanyahu protest on a Saturday night that focused on bringing home the hostages. And so in a time of madness, it was an ordinary visit, inspiring, loving, troubling, disturbing, and healing all at once. I think of what my friend did for me, and how so much of our in so many of our interactions this year, it's so hard to pull back. There's a weight of trauma that draws us in, and that's so painful for us. There's a second guessing of who we are, what our commitments are, and there's a concern about the incendiary things we might say if given the chance. And so I'm grateful that my friend could pull back from his trauma of this moment, put aside his anger, make space, be kasher lichos, well, maybe not so kasher lichos, maybe not so slow to anger, but he was at least noach v'irtzot, easy to appease. I only hope that I remember to do the same for someone else if I'm ever in the position of having to grant this precious forgiveness. In this moment, whichever side of this interaction you're on, I wish the same for you. Because whether in this moment or another moment, I believe it partakes of something that the Psalms refer to as Tahom el Tahom Koreh, deep calls to deep. That the depth of our souls is connected to the depth of the creative power of the universe and everything that's celebrated in this machzor and the mystery that we all feel stirs our souls and that we want to seek out. And that by connecting in this way, as our tradition promises, we bring some healing to ourselves, then emanating out to the people around us, to our community, to our society, v'chol ha'olam, in the whole world and the cosmos. Wishing you all a year of health and renewed connection and healing and shalom. Shana Tova.
We continue on page 207, and invite us to stand for Baruch Hu and join in the melody of this holiday that unites our souls and the tradition and its yearnings and its arguments and its insights. Page 207. Ay, 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 Please be seated as we continue reflecting, meditating to ourselves, and feel free to engage with the words on the traditional words of the BHA or the commentary and the poetic meditations on the side of the page. Ma'avir yom, mevi laila, mavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, el chavekayam, tamid yimloch aleinu, leolam vaed, Baruch ata Adonai, ay, 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 Let's sing together before the Shema on page 208. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha avta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochveinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam vaed ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu v'orech yameinu uvahem negeh yomam v'layla v'avatecha al tasir mimenu l'olamim Baruch ata Adonai ay 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 Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Elohim
Hod malchuto leolam vaed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ug'shartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך והיה. And take some time to reflect on the second and third paragraphs of the Shema on page 209. Adonai Elohechem Amen. As we reflect in a moment, we'll sing Mi Chamocha on page 210. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא מלכותך רובנך בוקע ים לפני משה זה עלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ונאמר יפד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני איי 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 Take some time with Hashkivenu on page 211 and noting the motif that's unique to both the holiday and to Friday night, which is that of the Sukkot Shalom, the canopy of Shalom, which is understood as enveloping us all the time. It's only these times that we might feel it in a new way. Page 211. Hashkivenu. ufros aleinu Sukkot, Sukkot, Shelomecha, ay, 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 Baruch atah Adonai haporeh sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. That is to stand for Vashamru, page 212. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם ay ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת וינפש כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה וילמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חון ויומי חון ובחיי דחו בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל שמי בקודשה בריחו לעילה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה וימרו amen.
Take some time with the silent Amidah. Take this time to breathe, to feel that bit of your own tenderness, your own soul in this time, in this space, in these words. The Amidah continues through page 221.
wanted to take just a few moments and talk about this part of the service that we'll sing and engage with for about next 30 minutes or so. It's the Slichot, and it has a particular structure to it. It's 3 piyutim, 3 poems. After each of them, we sing Adonai, Adonai El Rachum V'Chanun, Adonai, Adonai merciful and compassionate. And then after that, we have the confessions, and then some what I call reassuring piyutim, the piyutim poems that say it's all going to be okay. And I want to say just very little bit about some of the theological ideas behind it that can help us make use of this time in a meaningful way, and also some of the literary qualities of these poems themselves that perhaps that I hope will give us a way in. And I imagine, if you're like me, most of us come to Yom Kippur thinking, well, what can I do better this year? How can I be better? We take stock, we do a cheshbon nefesh, we look at our souls and we ask, well, how can I make atonement? How can I make kapara? How can I do tshuva and turn in this next year? That's incredibly important, and if your thoughts go there, and stay there, right, if that's where you want to be. But there's something else, and I owe this insight to one of my teachers in rabbinical school, who was a Holocaust survivor and an iconoclast, and he pointed out something very interesting. He said, making repentance, doing tshuva, means doing something better today than what you did yesterday. Doing something better today than what you did yesterday, and doing something better tomorrow than you did today. And he points out that in our prayer book, it says that God renews the work of creation every day. So God, according to our prayer book, makes creation today better than it was yesterday. You see where I'm going with this formula? God repents too. I think that's an amazing concept and how he gets there. God repents too. And so when you think about that, when I start to think about that, I looked at these slichot and I saw there's argument everywhere. Those verses that we sing out, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, those come from Moses reminding God that that's who God is, and therefore God can't kill the people in the wilderness, right, on their journey out of Egypt. And we see snippets of Job, who's the great fetcher and defense attorney of humanity in all of Jewish tradition, and many other examples of arguments with God. So this is a time to refine the soul, but part of the refining the soul comes through challenging God over the state of our world and our lives. The final thing I'll say here is that I know a number of us will look at the confessions and we'll think to ourselves, I object. I don't want to say these words because I didn't do these horrible things. Thank God you didn't do those horrible things. But I'll say the following. They're poems. They're not meant to be taken literally. And the fact that they're acrostics, each line beginning with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet, basically says to me it's taking us into a kind of poetic universe in which we can imagine these things. And then the question is, well, how are we related to these events in this poetic universe? So we'll begin with Ya'aleh on page 223, evoking the sense of where we begin and where we are at the end of this day. Please sing along with me. Ya'aleh tachanunenu me'erev ve'yavo shavatenu mi boker ve'yerahe rinunenu ad arev ya'aleh kolenu me'erev ve'yavo tzidkatenu mi boker ve'yerahe pi Bachashatenu mi boker v'yeraeh nakatenu ad arev. Yale menusenu me'erev ve'yavo lemano mi boker ve'yeraeh kippurenu ad arev. Ya'ale yishenu me'erev ve'yavo torenu mi boker ve'yeraeh chinunenu ad arev. Ya'ale zichronenu me'erev ve'yavo viudenu mi boker ve'yeraeh hadratenu ad arev. Ya'ale dovkenu me'erev ve'yavo gilenu mi boker ve'yeraeh bakashatenu ad arev. Ya'ale enkatenu me'erev ve'yavo elecha mi boker ve'yeraeh eleinu ad arev. We turn to page 224, and for our first piyut, our first poem, we have two lines. One which is transliterated, "V'hachochma me'ayin timatzeh ve'eze makom bina." It's a question from the book of Job. Where does wisdom come from, and where can understanding be found? And in Kabbalah, this question is not so much about wisdom as wisdom, but it's about how we look at the sense of the infinite and find wisdom in the infinite. And then this last line, not transliterated, I'm sorry, but it says, the awe before God, that is wisdom, and turning from harm, that is understanding. And this is a melody from a rabbi of the past few years, Rabbi Deborah Sachs-Mintz. I'll sing the nigun, then we can sing the words. It's the two bolded lines on 224, and the first one is translated. Ay, 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 ay. Try that with me. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ve'hachochma me'ayin timatzeh. Feel free to chant if you can't do the words. Ve'hachochma me'ayin timatzeh. Ve'ez mekom bina. Ay, 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 ay. Ve'ez mekom bina. Yar, ay, 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 ay. Try that. En yirat Adonai hi chochma v'sur mera bina. Ve'achokma me'ayin timatzeh ve'ze mekom bina. Ve'eze mekom bina. En yirat Adonai hi chochma v'sur mera bina. Let's turn to 226 and stand as we chant together at the bottom of the page. Tavur al pesha v'timcha sham keyom v'yitzetzev imosham tazin shavatin v'takshiv menu ma'amar kiyom v'yikra b'shem Adonai v'yavor Adonai al panav v'yikra Adonai Adonai el rachum techanun erech ha'ayim v'rach chesed v'emet notzer chesed malachim nosei avon v'feshan lechata v'nakeh v'salachta lavoneinu ulchatotenu unchatanu slach lanu avim ki chatanu mechalanu malkeinu ki fashanu ki ata Adonai tov v'salach v'rav chesed l'chol kor'echa. Please be seated. Let's turn to 227. Ki hine kach omer b'yad ha'yotzer takes its cue from the prophet Jeremiah, who says, we are like clay in the hands of the potter. And so each verse has a different metaphor, and its refrain is la brit habet, look to the covenant, va'al tefen la yetzer. Don't look to, and there's a double meaning here, don't look to the yetzer, to our drives with which we struggle, or it can mean don't look to the accuser, that heavenly being who is the prosecuting attorney before God. Look to the covenant and look to us for how we keep up the covenant. And so this beautiful Hebrew poetry here as well. Please feel free to sing with me. I will we'll alternate stanzas in Hebrew and English, and we'll start with Hebrew. Page 227. Ki hine kach omer biyad hayotzer birtzoto marchiv uvirtzoto mekatzer ken anachnu biyadcha chesed notzer labrit habet v'al tefen layetzer. Feel free to read with me. As stone in the hand of the mason who preserves or breaks it at will, so are we in your hand, God of life and death. Labrit habet, labrit habet, v'al tefen layetzer, ki hine kagarzen biyad hechacharash. Birtzoto dibek laur, uvirtzoto perash. Ken anachnu beyadcha, tomecha nivarash. Labrit habet, v'al tefen layetzer. As the helm in the hand of the sailor who holds the course or abandons it at will, so are we in your hand, good and forgiving God. Labrit habet, v'al tefen layetzer, ki hine kazchuchit beyad hamizageg, birtzoto chogeg, uvirtzoto memogeg. Ken anachnu beyadcha, mochel zadon v'shegeg, labrit habet, v'al tefen layetzer. As cloth in the hand of the draper, who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, righteous God. Labrit habet, v'al tefen layetzer, ki hine kakesef biyad hatzoref, birtzoto mesagseg, uvirtzoto mitzaref. Ken anachnu beyadcha, mamtzi lemazor teref, labrit habet, v'al tefen layetzer. Let's stand as we continue on 229. El horet alanu l'mosh 13 v'cholanu ayom brit 13 כמו שדת עליו מקדם כמו שכתוב וירד אדוני בן עמי תצא במושם ויקרא בשם אדוני ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נושא חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקי וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאותינו ונחלתנו סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו וחלל מלכנו כי פשענו כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך. As we're seated, let's turn to 231. And this poem is a part of a much longer poem by the medieval Spanish poet Yehuda Halevi. And it's a poem of longing, where the poet discovers in his longing, or in our longing for God as we do our spiritual seeking, we find the ineffable coming towards us. I'll sing the melody and we'll match the words to the melody. And the refrain is Kavodcha Maleh Olam. Your kavod, your being fills the universe. Ay, 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 Kavodcha Maleh Olam. Ay, 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 Kavodcha Maleh Olam. Kavodcha Maleh Olam. Kavodcha Maleh Olam. מקומך מלא עולם, כבודך מלא עולם, כבודך מלא עולם, ויענה לא אמצעך, כבודך מלא עולם. דרשתי קרבתך, כבודך מלא עולם, בכל ליבי קראתיך, כבודך מלא עולם, כבודך מלא עולם, כבודך מלא עולם. איי, 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 כבודך מלא עולם. ובצאתי לקראתך, כבודך מלא עולם, לקראתי מצאתיך, כבודך מלא עולם, כבודך מלא עולם, כבודך מלא עולם, מקומך נעלה ונעלם, כבודך מלא עולם. איי, 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 כבודך מלא עולם. Let's stand and chant together on page 232.
וירד אדוני בענן ויתייצב במושב ויקרא בשם אדוני ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך חיים ורב חסד באמת נושא חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונפים וסלחת על עווננו ולחטאותינו ונחלתנו סלח לנו על בגיחתנו וחללנו מלכנו כי פשענו כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לחוריך.
With the promise of chesed, compassion to all who call out, we do call out, chanting Shema Kolenu responsively, page 23. I'm sorry, page 233.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Chos v'rachem aleinu v'kabel v'rachem uvratzon et tefilateinu. תשליכנו לעת זקנה, ככלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אל תעזבנו ואל תנטשנו ואל תחרימנו ואל תפר פתחה איתנו. קרבנו לתורתך, למדנו מצוותיך, הורינו דרכך, עד ליבנו יראת שמך, ומול לבבנו לאמתך, נשוב אליך באמת בלב שלם, ולמען שמך הגדול תמחל ותסלח לעווננו, ככתוב בדברי קודשך, למען שמך אדוני, וסלחת לעווני, כי רב הוא.
Please be seated as we continue at the top of 234.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו, כי אנו עמך ואתה אלוהינו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו, אנו עבדיך ואתה אדוננו, אנו קהלך ואתה חלקנו, אנו נחלתך ואתה גורלנו, אנו צונך ואתה רוענו, אנו חרמך ואתה נודרנו, אנו פעולתך ואתה יוצרנו, אנו רעייתך ואתה דודנו, אנו סגולתך ואתה קרובנו, אנו עמך ואתה מלכנו, אנו מאמירך ואתה מאמירנו. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, תבוא לפניך תפילתנו, ואל תתעלם מתחינתנו, שאנחנו מאזיפנו כשעורף לומר לפניך, אדוני ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אבל אנחנו ואבותינו ואמותינו חטאנו.
Let's rise for the Vidui, page 235.
Ay, 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 Ashanu, Vagagnu, Gazalnu, Divarnu Dofi, ay, 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 ay,
seated. Let's turn to page 236 at the bottom of the page, the last paragraph set off by the letter Hey. The Hebrew poetry is so beautiful, and I love to chant it, but the English also is beautiful. And so why don't we bring these words into our consciousness by reading them and reflecting on them together at the bottom of the page. You know the mysteries of the universe, the deepest secrets of everyone alive. You probe our innermost depths. You examine our thoughts and feelings. Nothing escapes you. Nothing is secret from you. Therefore, may it be your will, our God and God of our ancestors, to forgive us all of our sins, to pardon us our iniquities, to grant us atonement for all our transgressions. I invite us to stand for the Al-Chet on page 237. Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'emotenu shetislach lanu al kol chatoteinu v'timcha lanu al kol avonotenu u'techaper lanu al kol peshaeinu al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'ones u'varatzon al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'imutz alev Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bivli da'at. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha bevitui sfatayim. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha begilui arayot. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha begalui vasater. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha badatu v'mirma. V'al chet shachatanu lefanecha b'dibur peh. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha Al chet shachatanu lefanecha beyetzer hara. Ve'al chet shachatanu lefanecha beyodim v'lo yodim. Ve'al kulam Eloha selichot selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu. Please feel free to chant along either in Hebrew or in English. We have sinned against you through denial and deceit. And we have sinned against you by taking bribes. We have sinned against you by clever cynicism. We have sinned against you by speaking ill of others. We have sinned against you by the way we do business. We have sinned against you in our eating and drinking. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by greed and oppressive interests. And we have sinned against you through arrogance. We have sinned against you in everyday conversation. And we have sinned against you through conspiratorial glances. We have sinned against you through condescension. We have sinned against you through stubbornness. Ve'al kulam Eloha selichot selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu al chet shechatan lefanecha bifrikato Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha biflilut. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tzdiat reah. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha וצרות עין. על חטא שחטן לפניך בקלות ראש, ועל חטא שחטן לפניך בקשות עורף, על חטא שחטן לפניך בריצת רגליים להרע, ועל חטא שחטן לפניך ברכילות, על חטא שחטן לפניך בשבועת שווא, ועל חטא שחטנו לפניך בשנאת חינם, על חטא שחטנו לפניך בתשומת יד, ועל חטא שחטנו לפניך בתימהון לבב, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו.
Please be seated and let's turn to page 240. And we have piyutim here that are reassuring piyutim that after we've brought to the surface our spiritual struggles and our arguments and laid vulnerable our own sense of our own vulnerabilities, we have these piyutim which have in them the hope that the conflicts that we live with and the pain that we live with will be resolved in the coming year. And there's a piyut on page 240 that I especially like. It's very simple and it repeats so you can get used to it. And its refrain is Hu Ya'anenu, God will answer us. And it invokes a whole series of matriarchs and patriarchs from the Bible and all who have the same outcome, Hu Ya'anenu, that God will answer us as God answered them. It begins kind of slowly and then picks up speed throughout. So if it's new to you, you can start on the slow part and we'll get faster. We're on 240, the second poem in the middle of the page, set off by the letter Bet. Mi she'ana l'sara imenu beziknata hu ya'anenu mi she'ana li'Avraham Avinu Bahar HaMoriah hu ya'anenu mi she'ana li'Yitzchak benam כשנעקד על גבי המזבח hu ya'anenu mi she'ana לרבקה בהריונה hu ya'anenu mi she'ana ליעקב בבית אל hu ya'anenu mi she'ana ללאה בעוניה hu ya'anenu mi she'ana לרחל בעצבונה hu ya'anenu mi she'ana
ליוסף בבית האסורים, הוא יעננו משענה מיילדות העבריות, על האובניים הוא יעננו משענה ליוכבד על שפת היאור, הוא יעננו משענה לאבותינו לאמותינו על ים סוף, הוא יעננו משענה למשה בחורב, הוא יעננו משענה למרים בבירה, הוא יעננו משענה לאהרון במחתה, הוא יעננו משענה לפנחס וכמו מתוך העדה, הוא יעננו משענה לבנות צלף חד ועומדן פתח אוהל מועד, הוא יעננו משענה לכל צדיקים והצדיקיות והחסידים והחסידות והתמימים והתמימות והישרים והישרות והרחמים והרחמניות, הוא יעננו.
Normally at this time we chant Avinu Malkeinu, but the custom is not to chant Avinu Malkeinu on Shabbat, which means you'll have to come to Ne'ilah, because at the end of Ne'ilah we will chant Avinu Malkeinu again. And will it be an Avinu Malkeinu? So we'll look forward to that. Continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 245. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah Be'alama divrach hirutei ve'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uve'yomechon uve'chayedecho beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari ve'immeru amen. Yehishmei Rabba mevarach ve'olam olalmei almaya Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitba'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'yitaleh ve'yitalal shemei lekudesha berichu le'ela mikol birchata ve'shirata tushbechata ve'nechamata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. תתקבל צלות ההון ובאו דהון דכל ישראל קודם מבוהון די ושמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל איי 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 ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל איי 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 ואמרו אמן. Aleinu Psalm 246.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'adon ha'zeh yotzeh b'reshit shelo asanu be'haratzot ve'lo samanu b'shmachot ha'adama shelo samanu b'nirahem ve'gor aleinu k'kol ha'onam v'anam ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני הילוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Please be seated. Let's turn to page 248. The Psalm 27 is our spiritual companion from the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Elul, about 6 weeks ago, until Hoshana Rabbah, about a week and a half from now. And so we can take some time to reflect on its words. As we're doing that, I'm going to sing the nigun and some of the words to Achat Sha'alti, which is actually transliterated in the middle of the page on 248. LeDavid Adonai Orei V'Rishi Mimi'ira. Ay 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 Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai lachazot benoam Adonai ulevaker behechalu. Ay 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 ay. Warner's Cottage is on page 247. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayed chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'yizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mvarach le'olam l'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yisrael. Please have a seat, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova. I don't really have any announcements for tomorrow, except that we'll begin at 9, and hopefully we'll be done by about 1:15, 1:30. And of course, it's a very full morning tomorrow. In addition to a full service and Torah reading, we'll also have Yisker and some brief reflections for our own sense to kind of restore our own sense of hope in our world, and thoughts about the Chevra Kadisha, about some other things that members of our community would like to organize for us to connect us to each other, and some ongoing thoughts about tshuva and how we turn to each other in our spiritual connections and back out to the world. I have to say, it's really been such a great honor and privilege to feel your open-heartedness from here, and to hear your voices, and to hear you trying melodies that I know are new for you, and make me feel very much at home and very reassured. But more than that, I feel like we are doing something together, and reaching for something together, and that is really an inestimable honor and privilege. Let's finish with Yigdal on page 250, and perhaps you know this melody. It's a traditional melody for Yom Kippur and for the high holidays in general, and it's pretty easy to catch on to. And it's also transliterated if you want to match the words on page 250. Yigdal Elohim Chai ve'yishtabach Nimtza v'yenei tel metziuto Echad v'yin yachid keyichudo Ne'elam v'gam in sof le'achduto Ein lo demut haguf ve'eino guf Lo na'aroch elav kedushato Kadmon echod avar asher nivra Rishon ve'en reshit lereshito Hino Adon olam v'chol notzar Yoreh gedulato u'malchuto Shefa nevuato netano El anshe segulato v'tifarto Lo kam beYisrael kemo she'od Navi umabit et emunato Torah emet natan le'amohel al yad nevio ne'man beto Lo yachal Yifa'el ve'lo yamir dato le'olamim lezulato Tzofeh ve'yodea setareinu Mahabit lesof davar bekadmato Gomer ish chesed kemifalo Noten rasha ra kerishato Yishlach leketz yamin Meshichenu Livdod mechakeket Yeshuato Metim yechayel berov chasto Baruch Adei Shem Tehilato Metim yechayel berov chasto Baruch Adei Shem Tehilato. The Shana Tova Techatemu, may we be inscribed for and sealed for a good year. Have an easy fast. Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.